So let me start with you, Louise. Having worked so closely with LVMH, what's your take on the importance of personalization when it comes to the customer experience?
You know, meeting the client virtually obviously became of greater essence as we entered the pandemic. And it has driven this new customer behavior that we want to be able to experience brands from brand and product wherever we are in the world. So being able to take that sliver of brand heritage and storytelling is something that LVMH has been able to excellently implement into their retail ecosystem.
Great. Let me ask you, Zac, isn't there a thin line between great use of data and being that creepy retailer trying to know too much about a customer, like being almost a stalker? Like, is there a blueprint on how to navigate personalization, in your opinion?
First of all, I'm glad you think I'm the expert on being a creepy stalker, so appreciate you directing that my way. I think one of the beauties of working primarily in a B2C industry and in personalization is we can draw on our own experiences as consumers. And you talk about like that creepy retail experience, like when you're in a store and someone is all over you, that's not like a great experience. And actually, Deborah had a great point of all of the different touch points that consumers have leading up to a purchase. I actually think the best way to look at it is like, how do we look at it not just as I have one opportunity to close a deal and sell a product in the moment, but how do I sort of layer on the data, collect data in relevant engagement situations that over a period of time, I can create like a much more robust picture of that consumer. And in each of those experiences, try to personalize it a little bit to that individual experience, as opposed to get all the information all at once, make a sale right in that moment.
And figuring out what data actually serves you to cater the best experience, right?
Exactly.
Louise, we have had the privilege of working with LVMH very closely for quite some time right now, and they started off very early. They were very early adopters. What would you say have been success factors, or like the key to their success?
So live video shopping used to be something that you used for PR and events. And their success was really understanding that it was now a vehicle to amplify your e-commerce and drive customer experience. So staying very true to the experience that we used to have when entering one of those stores and being able to put that on in video commerce, not just live, but also on recorded.
I think it's just really interesting, if I can jump in. I think I was just having a conversation before this all kicked off. For years and years and years in e-commerce, we were trying to replicate what happened in the store to try to create like a really, rich experience online, like we were used to in the store. And then all of a sudden we realized like there's this wealth of data and opportunity for us to capture in an online experience that we may not be able to capture in a physical experience. Right. And then all of a sudden we had our stores trying to replicate what we could do online. Like, can I have tags that have ratings and reviews in a physical store, right? And I think live shopping is a great bridge to that because it's a digital way to have that really like one-to-one personalized experience while you're collecting all that wealth of the data from an online experience. So I think, live shopping is like, it's just a great bridge between the digital and the physical that I think, we probably didn't see it coming, but now that it's here, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And I just making sure everyone in the audience understands the difference between the one-to-one and the one-to-many. So the one-to-one we're talking about here is where you have a two-way video conversation with just two people. So you're literally watching someone and having a dialogue over video. Yeah. I was thinking, Louise, when it comes to LVMH and their very sort of excellent client experiences, how are they working in their stores? Are they having specific people trained to work with one-to-one, or they use existing staff for these kind of things?
It's mostly used with existing staff because we also, as we coach them, so a big part of my role in the account management roles at Bambuser is to coach our partners into creating the best experience that is true to your brand, marketplace, and heritage, really. And what the client is really looking for is meeting these client advisors virtually, one-to-one, as if they were to walk into a store. So really creating that phygital experience without it being a phygital event, but having that dialogue transpire with a client advisor, and not having like external, what do you call it, like customer service center. They don't want that feeling. Like they want the authentic feeling of someone who has the knowledge, as if I was to walk into one of their flagships.
Yeah, and maybe coming back to what I spoke with Deborah about as well. So we pretty early started working with premium and luxury brands.
Yeah.
And I think what we saw is that in premium and in luxury, you have very complex sales purchase funnels. It takes a lot of time for you to make a decision to buy something for, let's say, 20K.
Right.
And that's where a personal interaction where you can ask questions gives you so much more confidence. So it's surprisingly to some, because very often in China you see this, live video shopping as quick deals and, high sales and low AOVs, average order values. Yeah. But we see actually even the opposite. We see very complex, high average order values and sales that takes up to 12, 15 minutes. What are some of the stats what we see in one-to-one when it comes to conversion?
So you are able to set up the one-to-one service in two ways. So either it's on demand on your site. I'm browsing your site. I want to speak to someone. I want to learn more about the product or how to use the products together. And I can opt in to speak to someone, just like how we usually do with customer service. Or you can set it up through appointment booking. So just like you're booking your hair appointment tomorrow at lunch, or you can schedule that time. And our sell-through in a appointment scheduled call, the two versus each other, you have a lot of purchase intent when you show up to that scheduled appointment. It's at 47%.
Wow.
It's interesting. If I can just say though, when you mention the differences between China and even I think as Americans, a lot of time we're like, there's China, there's Europe, and there's the U.S., right? And
Here we are.
We think, it either, because it worked over there, it's going to work over here, or we're different. Just because it worked over there, it doesn't work. Those are the two ends of the spectrum. But I think what we're learning and what you guys are doing a great job of bringing to us is it's not take exactly what you're doing over here and plop it over here and it either works or it doesn't work. There's sort of technological and cultural and infrastructural differences in each of these regions that we have to kind of give the brands the opportunity to sort of personalize the way in which they deliver that technology. And I think it took us a long time in digital to really get that. We'd see a trend somewhere and try to bring it over. But now, with the ability to sort of personalize that for each region, I think we're now seeing much more broad effectiveness of these new innovations.
And thank you for mentioning that, because I think that's also one of the reasons we invited you to come. We want you to meet each other, to network, and make sure that we're driving this movement, this trend together, because so much more is happening than what you might perceive if you're just sitting at your company doing your live stream. Another one for you, Zac. How do you think that live shopping affect our approach to CRM? Which is
it's funny.
Important e-com question.
For sure. So Salesforce's ticker symbol is, right, CRM, right? And what is CRM? I think historically we thought of it as it's a database where we capture all of the information on a customer, and we've got, what's their name, their email, their address, and all that. But if you want to be literal, it's customer relationship management, right? And so what used to be just capture the information on where can I just blast emails to, and it's now how do I continually develop the profile of an individual person, company, entity, whatever that may be, and identify what do they like, what do they don't like, what worked, what didn't work, capture the data from all of these different channels in order to create a really personalized, I'll say one-to-one, but sometimes it's not even one-to-one. It's just a relevant experience. I think CRM now is really just all about relevance.
Yeah, and when it comes to the one-to-one, it might be putting the right person in front of the other right person, figuring out who are you supposed to talk to when you dial in to one-to-one call.
Exactly.
To you, Louise, what would you say are the biggest obstacles when you as a brand are trying to envision how to do customer communication and how to think about personalization and that whole?
So I think Zac is touching on that too. We have this secret sauce or this recipe that works in China, or something worked for one client. How do we copy and paste it? But in the essence of driving client experience, it's being true to your brand and your brand heritage. both for one-to-one, like what you're touching on who are we coaching to respond to these virtual consultations, and the same thing, who are you putting in front of your, like a live stream show, your one-to-many show, because we used to get a lot of questions of what do I reserve budget for, like if I want to use an influencer, it's going to become so expensive. I'm not just paying for the license of the live streaming, I also have to get Emilia Clarke or Hailey Bieber and all these beautiful people we showed up on screen. But it's really, again, people from brand. So we took part, Bambuser took part in a survey that was done by American Forester last year that showcased that 38% of the audience watching a video commerce live show or recorded show wants to hear from people from brand. So this was in a full age span of, teenagers to 60 plus. Who do you want to hear from? And I want to hear, we can just relate to ourselves. Like, I want to hear from someone who can speak on the product, how I apply it when it comes to makeup, how I put the dishwashing machine together, or if you're in electronics, like whatever it may be, I want that experience that I'm used to from going into your store and the expertise of knowledge that your staff has. So who has been really successful here is actually our partners who have driven internal like auditioning programs of who should be in the live, not just taking someone who has been great in front of a broadcast or TV or who runs really great Instagram lives, because they don't know your product best. They don't know your client best. You do. So
Be confident.
Yes.
Be confident that you know what you're doing.
Exactly.
I think also it's like really interesting, as you were walking through that, there's been just an incredible shift from like static to dynamic content. And so at first you would go and you would look at a product and you could touch it and feel it and see if it's right for you. But as we shifted to e-commerce, we sort of lost that, right? So then the first was rich imagery, right? How can I see this football from every single angle? Well, how does it bounce? How does it feel? All that. Okay, so then we're going to shift to video, and there's going to be a static video, and there's someone sitting at a table like this, like here's our ball, and it's a great ball, and it's black and white, and all that sort of thing. And then as we shift into this like really dynamic of live shopping, the ability for someone to start that video with a canned script of I'm going to give you an overview of what this ball is all about. I probably should have chosen something sexier than football.
Well, you're the expert apparently.
Yeah, right, apparently. But to be able to like type a question in real time or be pulled into a live stream and ask your questions or share your experience, like that is so much more engaging as a consumer. Like I want that. Like I do a ton of research. If I can just do that in one live stream, like that dynamic content is so much more effective than where we started with a product description. I think you still need the full spectrum of everything, but being able to have a much more dynamic way of engaging with the brand and the product is just so compelling.
I couldn't agree more.
So let me use two then contradictory and important terms when we talk about e-commerce and SaaS and software. So automatization and personalization. How do they live together according to you, Zac?
It's a great question. I think people tend to think of automation as like set it and forget it, right? Like here is how I am going to run my program. I've got all of these different decision nodes, and I've thought of every like possible scenario, and I'm just going to set it and forget it. Yeah. Well, that's not personalized. Like you're trying to like mechanize a personalization, and so I think for me, I look at it as we used to think in terms of channels, like what is the channel in which we're getting the data, and what is the channel in which we're pushing that data out. I think the days of channels are like, I won't say over, right? That's a provocative statement, like channels are dead.
You can be provocative on the stage, you're
but
welcome.
there's a blurring, right? Like I'm not just taking my data from Facebook to automate and personalize an experience in Facebook. I'm bringing that into a data platform that I can use what I learned in Facebook in order to educate and advise what I'm going to do on TikTok, right? And so I think for me, it's less thinking about how do I automate individual silos and how do I bring in all of the data create the segments that I think are relevant, and then create a program for that segment that I can then, quasi set it and forget it, but it's never done, right? It's constantly iterating, constantly layering on more data and tweaking what you're doing from an automation perspective.
A lot of information. I'm just digesting, but yeah.
For sure.
Top line, I do agree.
It's less sexy when we go to the software guy talking about automation and personalization instead of talking about LVMH.
We need to hear both sides, So both Zac and Louise will be around today. If you have any questions around how to work with account management, and maybe even more about one-to-one and how you can really leverage your existing staff and your sort of how to elevate your customer experience overall. Or if you want to figure out how we do all these complex things with Salesforce, because they are one of our most trusted partners. So thank you, Zac and Louise. I'm very pleased to have had you on stage.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.